Saudi Arabia has applied to join the Shanghai Cooperation Organization after the decision was approved by Riyadh's cabinet. The SCO is a political and security union of countries spanning much of Eurasia, including India and Russia. This is Saudi state oil giant Aramco agreed to buy a 10% stake in China's Rongsheng petrochemical company for $3.6 billion. The kingdom is seeking to build trade ties with Asia and diversify its economy away from oil production. Well, let's talk to Sami, Hamdi, Managing Director of International Interest, the global risk and intelligence company. Sami, welcome. Good to see you. For those of us who are not insiders to this, how significant is this?
I think it's a big deal within the context of what's been happening recently, particularly with regards to Saudi Arabia's very loud, very public, very ostentatious display of getting closer to China. Part of it, of course, to spite Washington, with whom it has very strained ties. We saw them host Xi Jinping, the Chinese premier, in a lavish ceremony in the GCC China summit in Riyadh, a move that the allies such as the UAE stayed away from in order not to upset the Americans. Then, of course, for example, now we're seeing this idea of giving credit to China with regards to the truce with Iran, and now this idea of joining the Shanghai Cooperation Council. This is part of this very lavish display from Saudi Arabia, defiance of Washington to say, look, you tried to make me a pariah. I have other options now. I'm diversifying. I'm being accepted in the wider world. If it can't be you, it can be others. And this is why we're seeing this push towards China, which still looks more memorandum of understanding than actual substance as of yet. But nevertheless, the loud and public nature of it is what makes it significant, given that it shows that the ties are still strained with Saudi Arabia and that bin Salman so far is still looking to strong arm Washington.
Apparently this move will give Saudi Arabia the status of a dialogue partner in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Is that a big deal? Is that significant?
I think that what's important to note is that the Shanghai Cooperation Council is a very loose alliance. I don't think it's necessarily comparable to other institutions such as BRICS, which China is also part of, where perhaps there is much closer economic ties. And this is why I think this is more symbolic than actual substance. It's more this idea of Saudi Arabia leaving a door open for Washington whilst suggesting that it will very sincerely establish very closer ties with China. And we've seen Washington react. We saw a military exercise in the desert with Saudi Arabia to counter drones, a response to the Crown Prince bin Salman's long grievances regarding the lack of U.S. support in pushing back against drones in the region from the Houthis or from other militias in the region. So I think that when you look at it in terms of substance, it leaves many questions to be asked. But certainly in terms of the symbolism, it is very significant, given that the pace in which this is taking place suggests that bin Salman is expecting answers very soon from Washington, or else he may actually enter the stage of substance.
Very briefly, what's in this for Saudi? What's in this for China?
For Saudi Arabia, what's in it is to try to pressure Washington to ease its antagonism and start making concessions with regards to arms, with regards to investments, in order to make Vision 2030 or bin Salman's Vision 2030 a success. For China, the opportunity is that given the growing disgruntlement in the region, which is not unique to Saudi Arabia, given the UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, all these nations are upset with the US. They're not happy with US policy. These are offering opportunities now for China, unprecedented opportunities for Chinese investment, greater Chinese political role. We saw China play a role in the Iran-Saudi Arabia resumption of diplomatic ties. The chances for China to exert greater influence in the region, given the doors are opening as a result of this disgruntlement.
Sami, good to see you. Thank you for that. Sami Hamdi, Managing Director of International Interest, the global risk and intelligence company.